Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over qualities that avoidants think are exceptional. They don't have to necessarily be exceptional, but avoidants think they are, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Exceptional qualities avoidants value. So, first, let's talk about why avoidants think they are exceptional. A lot of these traits are traits that help them to grow and become more secure, as well as to not continuously trigger them. And the reason they feel like it's exceptional, even though it's not necessarily exceptional, is because they have lived a life where they believe that they can't trust anybody. And so, in order to accept that these qualities might be a little bit more common, they would have to trust the general population. And that usually is not happening anytime soon with avoidance. And so, that's why I'm using the word exceptional. It's not necessarily as exceptional, but very likely if you're involved with an avoidant, you have some of these characteristics, which kind of renders this video kind of pointless. But if you want to explore more about yourself, or you want to evolve these into a much more beneficial way for your relationship, that could be where this video comes from, that angle. But in general, if you don't have any of these qualities, but you feel like you suppress them, this is a great way to introduce them in your relationship to create more value and structure for yourself and your partner. And the very first one is pretty important because it helps them to feel less triggered after a very emotional time. It's the ability to remain lighthearted or have some positivity every now and again, especially after difficult times. This is really important, and to be honest, it's pretty fundamental in marriages. Life is hard. Relationships are hard. Sometimes things will get thrown at you that you did not ever expect and has nothing to do with your relationship. You guys could be married and maybe you bought a really expensive house that has your income combined and your mortgage is pretty high but doable because you guys both make a decent amount of money. You have a good amount in savings, and then 2 months in you both lose your jobs. I hope that never happens, but it might. And that's a stressful time. You guys are going to have a lot of strain, and the triggers that you guys have, because all attachment styles, their triggers increase during stress. You guys are going to both be really triggered. If you're anxious, preoccupied, you're going to be really anxious. You're going to be searching for jobs after jobs after jobs, depending on how you react. But I've seen things like this, and you're really worried. You think you're not good enough. And avoidance, they feel really embarrassed, fear of failure, and so they detach. They shut themselves off from the world. They feel like, what's wrong with me? How did I get fired? And they're too scared sometimes to apply for jobs because they don't want to get rejected again. And so they're a little bit slower to doing that. And this situation, you guys are behaving differently, so that already can create tension. The financial status of the household right now is tension filled. But during this time, if you can cut through it every now and again and just be lighthearted or positive, that can really help. And this is something that avoidants know they need sometimes. The next one is being able to focus on what the relationship has instead of what's missing. This is a tricky skill, and it's not even something, I think everybody should learn this. I do. Regardless of your attachment style, I think this is really important that you're able to do this. And avoidants really appreciate this because they know they're not giving you enough. And sometimes they don't know how. But another reason is sometimes they're trying and they're getting there, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. They might be able to give you that in 3 years, and you are expecting, okay, why not in 1 year? But avoidants are just slower. Their timeline is almost always going to be slower than yours. And so focus on what the relationship has. In particular, sub-point of that point, focus on what they have done for the relationship and how they've evolved. This is really important because it is the strongest indicator that your avoidant partner will continue to heal. So I'm going to give an example. Let's say in the beginning of your relationship, your avoidant partner canceled on you a lot, or didn't, hang out with you as much, or didn't text you as often, or went days without texting you. One of the most common fights in the beginning of a relationship with an avoidant. One of the most common. In fact, I've barely met any relationships where one is an avoidant or both, where that was not an issue at one point. Even if it was really small, it does occur. What do you do with that? Well, you communicate. You find out ways to meet in the middle. Usually you find a compromise. And fast forward 2 years after that, that's not an issue anymore. But that is now you have another issue. Who knows? Maybe it's intimacy in the bedroom. Whatever it is, reflect on that moment where that issue was really prominent and it was resolved. somehow, one way or another, between you two as a couple, and it's because your partner did make effort and show up. That's not to be taken lightly. It's a lot to actually make that effort. And a lot of people think if the effort's not enough, then they're still upset. And that's your right. But at the same time, people can't move at the pace that you perceive. It's the pace that they have. And so either you guys are not compatible and the relationship's not going to work, or you're going to have to take more time to focus on what the relationship has while the relationship continues to progress. And that ability in of itself is very important. The next one is to be able to accept miscommunication and move on instead of sticking to it. This is very dependent on the relationship and dependent on what the issue is. If you guys were really stressed and angry and you guys, I don't know, let's say you work from home and your significant other works outside of the house and sometimes you call during lunch, I don't know, and you guys had a little bit of a disagreement during lunch and then that significant other, their lunchtime was cut short, they had to go, whatever it is, and you guys are still riled up and upset about it. Let's say you guys live together. Your significant other comes home and you kind of don't want to talk about the fight anymore. You just want to have dinner and just relax. And they do too. Maybe that's worth moving on. Even issues that feel like you guys are butting heads and you're not going anywhere, it doesn't mean the issue is going to be, tucked under the rug and never talked about again. It just means revisit it when you both feel you have more clarity about the issue. Let's say the issue is that you want to go on dates more and they don't want to, because they feel like it's dumb or it's embarrassing or they don't do dates or whatever their version is, right? More common in the beginning couple years of avoidance. The relationship, say that's something that you want. That's fine if we don't want to do dates, but can we do something date-like at home? Can we make dinner together? Can we do that? And then maybe sometimes go on dates for special occasions, and maybe they meet you in the middle with that. And so that's good enough. Leave it, and then in a couple years or a couple months, whatever your situation is, reintroduce the topic again. Sometimes you might not even come through with a compromise at all. And if that is the case, and you just feel like you guys are butting heads and it's affecting your relationship, but there are other things that are good, leave that issue on the shelf for the moment. Revisit it in 6 months when rapport is stronger, when emotions are not as high, and process that again the next time around, because usually they're a little bit more receptive after time has passed. And the fourth one is that you're able to challenge an avoidant to help them grow. I have videos on challenging them more specifically, but in general, we were just talking about this, don't let them completely run the show. You have to get your needs met as well. Whether it's today or 2 years from now, you want a lot of compromise as well. That's normal. And maybe in the beginning, you're giving more than you're accepting. That's true. I'm not going to lie to you. But maybe in 2 years, it's more even. That's what you're looking for. It's not going to happen right away in marriage, and relationships are stressful because very often in the beginning, one person is giving more, and then later in the relationship, the other person's giving more, and then it flips again, and then it continues to flip-flop. That's really common. Probably going to happen with you guys. If you guys, get married and stay together for 20 years, you're going to see that pattern. But in general, you want to expect them to grow and change. You do not want to accept them fully for who they are. You do. You accept them genuinely, but you don't want to accept all the bad things about them because you care about them and love them, and that's not healthy. And so you're expecting that to change. And so don't give up on those things. Bring it up again later when you feel like time has passed and things are more healthy. Let's summarize and then we'll wrap it up. Being able to remain lighthearted every now and again. Focus on what the relationship has instead of what it doesn't. Being able to accept that miscommunication happens and move on. You don't need to stick to every issue, and being able to challenge your partner. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.